There we go. Now you can hear me in the wrong mic. Humboldt Waste Management Board of Directors. Can we have a roll call, please?
Pereira,
Here.
Castellano,
Here.
Sweeney,
Here.
Bone, Hogan, Wilson.
Okay. Next item on our agenda is the consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered to be routine by the board and will be enacted upon by one motion unless specific request for review is made by a board member or a member of the public. The consent calendar will not be read. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless polled for discussion. Is there anyone in the public that would like to poll an item on the consent calendar for discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to take item 2C, which is the agreement between the County of Humboldt and HWMA, and bring that back to the board in November per the county's request.
Is that item D?
C.
D.
Or D?
D.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'd also like to poll item A, the minutes. So any comments from other board members? So we have a motion to approve B and C of the consent
And I'll
calendar?
second.
We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Do you want to start, Jill? Do you want to start? You just wanted to poll that. You don't want to discuss it.
There's no need to discuss. We're going to continue it to
Yeah,
November.
Okay, got it. So I pulled the minutes. I think I'm either confused or we've got some kind of errors in the minutes, specifically item 5, which says review and approve of the HWMA handbook policies, and the motion refers to approval of the consent calendar. And that's on item A, same with item B. And item C as well. So that's a pretty minor situation, but nonetheless, I thought we should correct that for the record.
I missed it.
I'll make sure those corrections get in. It was a little bit of a last-minute thing, unfortunately.
If it's all right, are there any other?
No, that's it, that's
Okay.
it.
I will make a motion to approve the minutes with those technical amendments.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion. We have one abstention.
Well, then we can't, then we don't.
Okay.
We don't have a quorum,
Oh,
so we'll have to go over the minutes.
I can approve it, just
Yeah, you can if you feel like it was done
I'll change that
properly.
to approve.
okay, thank you.
I'm like, I was thinking, but you were here for part of it. Got it.
Seems like I missed the ribbon.
Okay, next item on our agenda is oral and written communications. This time is provided for people to address the board or to submit written communications concerning matters not on this agenda. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak to an issue not on the agenda? Welcome.
Hello, my name is Morgan McAvoy. I'm Chair for Zero Waste Humboldt. I have notes just to keep it brief for everyone. Good evening, Chair, members of the board, and staff. I'd like to give you a quick update on Zero Waste Humboldt's work and request time on your next agenda for a presentation. Our refill, not landfill network includes several of your cities, the cities of Fortuna, Eureka, Arcata, Blue Lake, McKinleyville Community Service District, and McKinleyville and Arcata High Schools. The 10 water bottle refill stations have to date been used in more than 50,000 times to reduce single-use plastic water bottles. This Zero Waste Humboldt has trained more than 50 local businesses, operators, and staff to date. We've tailored the National Zero Waste Training Certification programs to be more practical, convenient, and affordable for local businesses in our rural area. We will launch local Zero Waste Business Certification Program in January, and we have 14 businesses already waiting to enroll. Next spring, we will host a regional zero-waste manufacturers trade show of products and packaging that are less wasteful and have less plastic and pollute less in their manufacture. And lastly, in 2014, Zero Waste Humboldt initiated a countywide Zero Waste Day on November 15th, and the number of partner organizations and local government agencies is growing every year. We look forward to collaborating with Humboldt Waste Management Authority to increase public awareness and to increase adoption of the zero waste method on this annual day. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Morgan.
Questions? Ella?
Morgan,
Push your button.
yeah, there's a question here.
Yes? Oh, I apologize.
Too
Yes,
many
sir?
buttons. Are you talking to local packaging firms here too?
I'm sorry?
Are you talking to the local packaging firms as you move forward on this?
That's definitely our aim.
So you haven't yet?
Your question in packaging is like, is there any packaging being made locally? Or,
No, the people that the manufacturing, there's quite a few the people that do packaging in Eureka, Humboldt County. There's a myriad of them. Are you contacting those people to work? I mean, going to the source might be
that's definitely our goal. I'm not sure specifically, I personally haven't been in contact with them. I can confer with my board and see if any of them have been in contact with them.
And then the other thing is the cannabis industry seems to be the growing packaging, and I'm sure you're working with the
Oh, absolutely.
HCGA and all that.
Yeah, that's definitely.
They're fun to work with, but. if
Part
you-
of our certification would definitely focus on cannabis, because as being in the Emerald Triangle as we are, we want to get ahead of
don't-
that.
Don't
before-
Focus on it, have it be part of it. There's a lot of other businesses. I'm just saying, make sure it's part
Absolutely.
of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great,
yeah, We
thanks.
want to address all of the businesses, all the industries in Humboldt, and eventually get to zero waste in our county.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Would anyone else from the public like to speak to the board? Seeing none, I'll close oral and written communications and move to item 4, approve professional services agreement with Cascadia Consulting Group for waste characterization study.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did do a quick little discussion about this last month. The item is before you, and we are requesting that the board consider approving Resolution 2020-05, which is a resolution of the Humboldt Waste Management Authority Board of Directors approving a service agreement with Cascadia Consulting Group for a waste characterization study. We are asking that you consider approving the agreement so that Cascadia Consulting can perform an update of the 2010-11 waste characterization audit that was last prepared. It was initially done in 2011. The report itself looks like this, and it is chock full of all sorts of really great information by jurisdiction, and all the material types and the percentages. And it has been used in order to help identify some of the priorities for material reduction in the 2013 strategic plan that was approved by the board. And we've been working on some of those projects, and that includes carpet diversion and mattresses and organics and items such as this. The state of California has also been using Cascadia Consulting, and they had an audit, statewide audit performed in 2013. The 2014 report, because it was done by the same firm, with the same sampling methodology, with the same analytical approach, we've been able to take that information and compare it between what we had then and our participation with the statewide audit. And we're recommending that we undertake a full audit, waste audit again, so that we can see what sorts of trends have developed in the time between 2010 and 2019. Now, because this was initially going to come to the board in February, and it took some time to get the local task force to convene and discuss this, they have since accepted another client with the city of Los Angeles, which is kind of, now they take precedence over us. So we'd be looking at having Cascadia perform the first set of sampling in July of 2020, with the winter sampling being done in February of 2021. So it'll take a little bit of time, but they are one of the top firms for doing this by utilizing Cascadia, we will ensure that we're minimizing any of the variables in terms of developing that information so that we can provide it to our member agencies. We've reached out to Humboldt State University, the City of Fortuna, and the City of Trinidad numerous times since we've had this proposal on the table, and to date, nobody has committed to participating with us. So we would like to proceed with authorization to secure them so that we can have Cascadia moving forward. And I think at this point, I'll just open it up to any questions, because I know you're kind of familiar with some of these items already.
Does anyone in the public have a question or a comment on this item? Seeing none, anyone on the board? Yes, Leslie?
Do you see any problems arising with waiting until July 2020?
You know, not really. It would be nice if we had more immediate information, because we are still using information from 2010. But there's only a handful of firms that do this kind of work to this degree of detail that will probably have better information in July as more entities are moving forward with organics diversion. So hopefully some of the sort of burgeoning efforts could then be measured, and we would base it against what happened with 2010 as well as what we were seeing in the 2014 audit. That was a smaller sampling exercise, but then we can get a better handle on, are we still sending 30% organic material to landfill, or is that beginning to see measurable decrease? So.
I have a question. In terms of bringing in, Fortuna, Trinidad, HSU, and CR, it does seem like there's a benefit to having this start in July to perhaps give us some time for that engagement. But
Yes.
when would be that hard line?
That drop dead?
Yeah.
I would expect that to be likely October. I always do this with the month of April. Likely April or May. The proposal was written up so that if they opt in, we can make that happen. And they would simply pay for, their share of the project. So the proposal was developed so that HWMA would handle it on behalf of our member agencies, and if anybody else wanted to come in, we've got a straightforward rate. We try to have as much flexibility with that. Yeah.
So I'm looking, what, 145?
Yeah, 146,000.
Is that with everybody involved?
That is just HWMA and all of our member agencies.
Okay, and then the other guys will have to.
Yeah.
So that's about,
It's about $760 a sample.
yeah.
$760 a sample, yeah.
Do I think that's a whole bunch, or am I out of the?
It's pretty labor intensive. So these guys are coming out, and we've got an area cordoned off so that, all the garbage will get dropped onto
Understood.
the ground. They wade through, they start sorting out by material, they weigh all the material, they're identifying what route, what city it's coming from. So it's a pretty labor intensive process, and then all of that information is going to go back, and it's going to be analyzed, and then the generation of the report. So when the authority undertook this, in 2010, it was $124,000. So unfortunately, because we had to bump it again, because we didn't get it before you earlier, it moves over into another fiscal year, so there was a slight increase of cost, so it was 142 at that point, but we're now at 146 corrected for the next fiscal year. Yeah.
Any other questions from the board? So in terms of encumbering funds to allow this project to go into fiscal year 2021, are there
Basically-
provisions for increase in that fee based on increase in prices, or is that going to be a fixed fee?
What we were looking at is in this fiscal year budget, we had $80,000 allocated to this. And then the balance would be picked up in the next fiscal year budget. Because it's not going to be in this fiscal year, it's going to be in July. We're asking that we simply encumber the funds from this fiscal year and apply it to next year.
Okay, so we just carry
Yeah.
that amount over.
Right.
Okay.
Just want to have explicit direction on that. So we're trying to minimize what the overall cost increase would be by doing it that way.
And encumbering means taking 80,000, putting it in a shoebox, and then stuffing it
In
in a
this
file
case,
drawer
yes.
somewhere.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay.
We won't lose that shoebox, though. I think somebody did that with
Need a
Recology.
GPS tracker on that.
Yeah.
What successes have we had from the 2010 study?
So the 2010 study really helped to do a few things. One is a lot of the information was used when the authority was developing its organics project and doing some of the food waste pilot study, as well as the endeavor around development of the anaerobic digestion system. Because we were unable to get any of the member agencies to commit that flow of material, we were unable to proceed with development of either a collection or organic treatment system, or anaerobic treatment system, or even a composting effort at that time. It did help to identify the need to be working regionally for some form of organics, and so we've been working on that as part of our strategic plan. Again, we can't tell member agencies what to do and what not to do. And when we're talking about material that they have in their control, any sort of regionalization effort is going to require that they're willing to make that commitment. So that's where things still are. It's still disjointed. So that's for organics. In terms of being able to better characterize some of our materials, we've been able to identify shifts and trends, such as we've seen a decrease of newspaper because increasingly we're all using more electronic devices. We're also seeing an increase of electronic devices that are now coming in. Same thing with the mattresses and the carpet. So we've got some baseline information for the amount of carpet that was coming in, and we now have a carpet organic. Why am I saying these? A carpet diversion program. So we're diverting about 990 tons annually of carpet into the recycling mix. So we have been able to use the information from that report that helps to identify the low-hanging fruit for where can we focus on getting more diversion. It also factors into some of our activities around the household hazardous waste facility and our efforts to encourage people to do the right thing. We are now accepting household hazardous waste at no charge. And of course, as you all know, we're also doing it 6 days a week. So while that was a minute portion in terms of volume that was in the stream, we're going to be able to further reduce that. So we'll see how all of these efforts, are playing out in terms of a measurable manner.
Great. Well, if there isn't any further discussion, I would like to make a motion to approve the professional services agreement with Cascadia for the waste characterization study.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion, or opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is board member reports. Does any board member have anything they'd like to report on? No, nothing from Ferndale.
Tomorrow night at 5 o'clock, we do have the public opportunity to meet our incoming city manager candidates. So that's going to be at the Wharfinger Building. I invite everyone to come out and meet our 6 candidates.
Thank you. Mr. Bone? Yeah, okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the executive director's report.
In brief, one is the third bullet down identifies that the local task force was scheduled to meet this morning at 9 o'clock. That meeting was canceled yesterday, so I don't know when it's going to be rescheduled, but one of the topics for the group has been around regionalization of an organics, or excuse me, when I use the word organics, it's green waste and food waste kind of processing. But so there's ongoing active discussions around that particular item. I want to give a quick shout out to our HHW staff. You'll note that there's a pretty extensive write-up in here that basically we had received some material, a little bit out of the ordinary, that required some special handling as well as some notifications to some of the agencies. We needed to bring in a contractor in order to ensure that they were able to stabilize the material. And so that meant we had to kind of cordon off our facility early in the morning, make sure there was nobody there. The contractor was able to come in, they stabilized it so that we could then ship it out. It was material that was accepted by a resident dropping off household hazardous waste. And our staff was absolutely amazing. They got all the permits that we needed to do. They got the contractor. They took all the necessary safety precautions, notified the fire department as well as the county environmental health department. Everything went off without a hitch. So, it's one of those, nothing to report is a really great thing.
Yeah.
But we want to report it because, we do periodically get these materials, and we really have an amazing staff. And they handled it very competently and quietly, and I
So
appreciate
was
that.
this material labeled, even though it was 2006?
It was labeled, and fortunately, it also had the factory seal on it, and with an expiration date of April of 2006. So it's a substance that at the point that it becomes exposed to air or oxidized, it could become unstable and pose a threat.
So was staff receive actual training on these kinds of materials or this particular kind of cereal? Do they have a checklist that they refer to?
I am going to ask Deirdre Hanners, our Director of Environmental Health and Safety, to come forward and speak more specifically about what our household hazardous waste staff do and how they handle this day to
Excellent.
day.
Thank you. Yes, okay.
Hi.
After you've had your first cup of coffee, you,
Well, the first thing the staff does is they actually go check the load. We were talking about the unpermitted materials that come through. We call it load check. So they go and pick up the materials that should not be in our regular waste source. And actually, I wanted to mention that we do something called the 303 report every year, where we report all of the hazardous waste that comes through the hazardous waste facility, through also the electronic waste through the recycling center, and also load check materials and events if we ever have them. And that showed that we've dropped almost 50% in how much load check materials we pulled off of the tip floor and out of the recycling. So it's working, that our staff, the tip floor staff, are keeping a good eye on what's going on out there. I mean, stuff's obviously going to get through, but it's also awareness of the public. They're starting to take advantage of our facility. And we've also had a big increase in numbers come through this year. So we make sure they stick to the load sizes. We've expanded our hours, and it's very successful. So what do? Basically, the people come in we say, hey, so what do you got for us today? And they generally have all kinds of crazy stuff in their trucks that they've cleaned out of their barns and stuff. So the staff has to take a quick characterization, and sometimes you get cardboard boxes just full of bottles, and you can't look at each bottle and inspect it because of time. But you have to have a kind of a good idea, like, oh, that looks a little weird. So we do have to segregate that stuff immediately. And that's how we found the tetrahydrofuran that came in that lovely bottle with the scary expiration. Pardon me? Pretty much, yeah. So we do get kinds of things like that. Recently, we received a whole bunch of photochemical materials that appeared to be from perhaps somebody who was a photographer. It was one of those things that was left in someone's barn. So we had to make a judgment, is this a business or is this residential? And so how do you handle these things? And so you have to have a lot of good customer service skills to talk to the people about, what kind of material is this? Where did it come from? So they do a really good job, and we have 3 great people working out there right now that are, well, 2.5, I should say. And I have nothing but complete confidence in their abilities to spot these kinds of things and keep everybody safe, which they proved the other day with the getting all the permits and the notifications. So, any specific questions?
Yeah, excellent. Any questions? No? Thank you, Deidre.
Okay.
Yeah, and congratulate your staff. We appreciate it.
I will, for sure. Thank you.
Okay.
So 2 other quick items for you. One is just an update as far as the authorities, transfer station and landfill in response to the power outage that we all experienced yesterday. I want to let board members know that all employees did report to work. However, without power, we weren't able to operate some of our operations, including the CRV buyback, because it requires the use of scales as well as a computer program for the transactions, in addition to the HHW facility, because the fire suppression system requires having electrical. So we did close that portion of the facility, and we had those employees perform some basic housekeeping and things like that, and then sent them home early. And then we basically just adjusted our operations so that it was essential functions only. So it was franchise trucks, self-haul trucks coming in with garbage or green waste, as well as contractor vehicles. Scalehouse staff, I want to just, kind of give a shout out to them, because the weight scales weren't working either. So that meant Tyler stood out there and he was doing volume-based measuring so that we could do volume-based pricings with each and every customer that was coming in. And then all of the tickets were having to be generated by hand in terms of the pricing and whatnot. So yesterday was a bit of a stressful day, but they knocked it out of the ballpark. It was really great. We were, unlike typical power outages, where it's usually one community, maybe a couple communities, all of Humboldt County was shut down. And what we did is we developed an operational plan in anticipation that we would be without power for 8 days. Because it was all of Humboldt County, and gas shortages occurred very, very quickly, we were able to ascertain, available employees, how close or how far they lived away, what their personal fuel was in their vehicle, and their ability to report to work. And then we started developing basically a skeleton sort of staffing of our facility that would get us by for 8 days. Because one of the things that's really underappreciated is garbage. People are, we were talking a little earlier about, OES. We in Recology, we didn't get any advance notification. We were reacting pretty much the same as everybody else in pretty much the same time frame. So our director of operations very quickly went out and got additional fuel to make sure that we had fuel to operate all of our equipment for 8 days during this time period. And so there was a lot of pulling together and bringing together those resources to make sure that if garbage is coming in, we're able to handle it. Number one. Number two, that garbage was not sitting out by the curbside piling up day after day after day in the case of Recology. So they had to also ensure, think about those route trucks, and they're not getting great gas mileage, and everybody pulled together really well to ensure that garbage is going to go forward. So I think that this exercise has identified a number of actions and some additional resources that we need to secure if this starts becoming our new normal. And so it's been pretty important. But I really want to thank all of our employees because, they were there and they were prepared to, go the long haul and, working with Linda and identifying. So if we experience a shortage of this, who could, backfill with what to make sure that material is being properly handled in the county during these types of events. Up at the landfill, as you're aware, we do have to do regular gas monitoring because the compression system was down as well as the flare. We were going to be doing daily monitorings and doing venting, physical venting if necessary. So that was going to, also require our employees to be up there and doing more regular, monitoring. Typically, they only have to do it a few days a week. They were going to be up there every day, making sure that there were no bubbles forming or anything like this underneath the cap. So it was a good drill for 24 hours.
Yeah.
And I think that everybody, and I know that it's not just us, I think the entire community is a bit exhausted from this event, but we certainly got some good tasks for us to undertake to, strengthen our overall operations as it pertains to these kinds of events.
Definitely. I think we all, in Ferndale anyway, thought this was a good drill.
Yeah.
And next time, we probably won't get any notice.
Yeah, after the outcry that's happening, they're probably never going to want to tell us. I do want to make one other note, and it's not my intention to embarrass anyone, but Deirdre Hanners she has given me her notice of resignation. She has accepted a position as Director of Environmental Health and Safety with Zion National Park. I know the National Park System is what really speaks to her heart, and we're going to miss her tremendously, and I cannot begin to, overstate my appreciation for her coming in and really getting our health and safety program organized and really develop a good structure that we're able to, continue moving forward with and implementation and training and things like this. She's done a phenomenal job, and we are going to miss her quite a bit, so I want to let the board members know.
Yes, that sounds like a great job. Zion's a beautiful place, and thank you for your efforts while you were here.
And that
Okay.
concludes my report.
Yes, the next item on our agenda is closed session. We will be discussing public employee performance evaluation of the executive director.